Bitcoin pushing 97,000, teasing that it's going to break up further as countries increase liquidity into their markets. The U.S. Federal Reserve meeting is today. It will be curious to see what decisions they're making. Today, we're joined by Paul from DEVVE to look at the markets and the price action. Are the markets getting ready to blast off, or are they just going to continue to make us wait for what seems like an eternity? Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel and our family. If you, like me, came into crypto because you realize the serious potential here for life-changing gains over a greater 48-year period, and you're looking for discussion on becoming a solid, unshakable, savage crypto investor, like a Navy SEAL of crypto investing, you're in exactly the right place. Now, I was once into the crypto space myself 8 years ago, and I didn't know at the time that, well, on YouTube, you grow a huge channel by talking about things that are already high and already expensive and being optimistic for why they'd go higher. I also didn't realize that for the first, it took me a solid year realizing that incentives for those covering crypto on YouTube were all wrong. What I was looking for is I was hungry for analysis on cryptos that were underpriced and undervalued. And I didn't find that. So in 2020, I created that. And we discussed crypto as an investment, discussed the most important things like investment cycles, projects, the pros and cons of those projects, the risks of those projects, and the upside if they come together well. And I especially love covering projects that are off everyone's radar, that their prices are down in the dumps. And I feel like there's something special about them. So if you're looking for even deeper discussions, join our private Patreon group that allows you access to our Rainmaker private Discord. This is where the best discussions and the best info is. There are other benefits too, but you'll have to join us to find out. Do note, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a crypto investor myself. Paul, who is joining us from DEVVE, invests in many different markets. None of this is to be taken as financial advice. Make it rain on that like button and strap in for the show because today is Wednesday and Paul from DEVVE is joining us. Paul, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Sorry I missed last week, but yeah, there's still a lot going on and there's always stuff to talk about. So good to be back.
Yes, the audience is excited. Kyle says, Paul and Jay, favorite show to watch.
Thank you.
Chris Ashby said, what's up, Paul and Jay? Had major withdrawals last week without y'all.
Thanks, Chris. It's very kind.
Yes. All right. Well, what are you seeing going on, Paul?
So I guess we're in this second stage after the big sell-off. And as we know, everyone was panicking around there and saying that was it. And Bitcoin trend is over again. I mean, I don't know how many times we've heard that. But the response was more important. The response to what was going on was key. You know, was this first move down in the markets the sign that we were going to go in a 1929 style collapse, or was it that it was going to bounce back? And those were the questions that were being asked at the time. And although you could never know anything 100%, the main risk on themes hadn't changed from a few weeks before the big sell-off. So the response has been interesting to show that we are still in this bull market. And the overall trends hadn't changed anyway on the big picture, despite the ferocity of the moves that we'd seen. And there were other things moving in the background that suggested that the dollar was going to weaken, that risk on was still there, and broadly equity markets were moving higher. Now, central banks are now in a position where they want to protect their countries. The best way to do that, the cheapest way to do that, they could either give money, do tax cuts, or the governments could do tax cuts, and that would help with the increase in prices that possibly could be the result of tariffs, not to mention the supply chain problems that this is going to cause and the uncertainty. But most likely it means that interest rates are going to go down, or that will be the response. Now, how long they stay down for is actually will be interesting to see. But the structure of lower rates, then the markets continue to move up, and then inflation is one that we've kind of pinned or projected out for some time now. And what's always interesting is how the market comes round to that way of thinking, with whatever news flow seems to appear. And so we've actually got our FOMC meeting today, I believe. So interest rates probably will not change, but it might just be that they want to get May out of the way where there'll be no change. Powell has had that spat with Trump, which is very ugly, and it shouldn't really be done like this. It's unprofessional the way it's being done in public. If he privately wanted him to cut rates and he thought that was the right thing to do, he should just talk to him. But there's always political pressure. You just know it. But doing it this way, he's kind of damned if he does and he's damned if he doesn't. So Powell, if he cuts rates, it'll look like he's responding to Trump's indications that he should cut rates. If he leaves rates unchanged and the economy weakens, then it looks like he's not doing his job. So, politically, I think in the end, he will just do nothing this month, but say that the risks have gone up. And I reckon he's going to give a statement that will say that it's Trump's volatility that's causing all these problems, and he may have to cut rates. But I think what he'll say will be very political or very sort of targeted towards being negative towards Donald Trump. And to be fair, there are going to be a lot of people who are unhappy with the way these tariffs have been brought in, and the although there was an expectation they were going to come, it's just kind of like the way it's almost like a game of poker where they go up every day. The stakes seem to rise when China raises tariffs, they raise tariffs, and then just people say it's the art of the deal. Now, whatever that is, it's not really for me to get into that, because I don't really, to be honest, I don't really care, because I just think I'm just looking to see. I think of the market as having this momentum, and these things come along and kind of knock the market off course for a little bit, and then it sort of gets back and carries on. I'm more interested in how it responds to these things rather than the actual causes, because what we're seeing is the market is shaking it off. The equity markets are going back up, and bond yields have come back down again. So there's some calm, and the bounces have been, phenomenal, really. So now, having said all of that, we may be at a point where nervousness comes back in again, because we're kind of back to where we were before, and there might be a bit of selling where short-term buyers had come in and want to take their profits, and people realize that we're not in the summer months, but we're approaching summer months. And there's an expression in the UK that says sell in May and go away and come back on St. Leger's Day, which I think maybe, I don't know, I can't remember when that is. That could be September. But anyway, either way, there's this sense that we might get a bit of a lull, and that wouldn't surprise me after all this, if you can call it fun and volatility. But again, it's like the main headlines are the structure is the market's going up and the dollar's going down. Equity markets are rising, risk on is still on, and after a consolidation period, more of this should happen. And will Bitcoin break 100,000? I don't know. It could. I think it will, but I don't think it may not do it now. It may need to pause for a bit, but certainly the trend has been good. So there's a balance towards the upside, and it's been relatively still very strong. I mean, one would have thought that the altcoins would have had a bit of a rally here, and they have. To be fair, there are some that have moved up, but it's just been, you've had to pick your markets. Not like all the boats are rising with the tide. It's there are some that are moving and some that clearly aren't, but I still think that there's prospects for a broader rally. And going back to the statement right at the beginning, were we in this big collapse? Well, we've never thought that we were in that collapse, because the sentiment didn't seem right for it, and the sentiment being correct for a massive collapse is that we have that final all out of control boom that hasn't quite hit yet. Now, that doesn't mean that people aren't bullish, but we just haven't had that craziness that we perhaps saw in the .com boom, which was a year or two of absolutely crazy buying. And just some really mental things happening. And so that's the sort of thing we'd like to see to indicate that we're hitting a top. And then the warnings about there being a top will just be lost in the wind because people will be just too excited. So we didn't have that, which look, it doesn't guarantee we have anything. It's just that those are signs that are usually very strong to show that we've hit the top, and they weren't there.
Yeah. Yeah, I strongly believe that is still coming, especially as liquidity. What's funny is the Bitcoin halving, the year after the Bitcoin halving, which is when crypto is really pumped, 2013, 2017, 2021, also coincided well with massive liquidity coming into the markets. And the combination of those two things really drove crypto to go crazy. And what's funny is when something is going crazy is when everyone wants to get in. So it's further increased the adoption to this new form of the digital age. So it's like blockchain and cryptographic encryption allow the internet to do things that couldn't be done before, and they call it Web 3.0. With Web 1.0 being the invention of the internet, Web 2.0 is the interaction that can happen on the internet with social media and uploading all your photos and interacting with your friends and, ordering things online and having it shipped to you right away. And then Web 3.0 is just what blockchain enables, combined with cryptographic encryption with further security, just decentralized finance, being able to cut out banks in some ways, being able to have your finances online, being able to move it somewhere. So they call that Web 3.0. And that adoption curve is coming fast. And it seems to come in waves of 4 years. When crypto really blows up and goes crazy, everyone starts paying attention to it. And we're still waiting on that greater adoption wave that hasn't hit yet. It really hasn't hit. And it's marked by a lot of regular people waking up and FOMOing into Bitcoin and other crypto. We haven't seen much of that yet. We do see a lot of institutions buying. We even are seeing some US states buying. We see some countries buying Bitcoin and perhaps some other cryptocurrencies. Institutions are buying. The retail wave hasn't come yet, but I do think things are setting up for that. Why don't we take a look at the charts, Paul, and see what charts you're looking at?
Yeah, sure. I was just looking at that. There was a question from Devo asking about what would happen if the Fed lowered rates, and I think it doesn't lower rates today, and it ties into what we're going to look at today, really. And the thing is, nobody's expecting them to lower interest rates; they're expecting them to hold. So nothing really should happen. I think it's just the language. In fact, there was a chance that they were going to cut in June. The market was looking for maybe a cut, but the weird thing, the way the market works, it kind of pushes and pulls. So when the market goes down, it's like, oh, the Fed's going to cut rates, and then when the market goes back up again, as it has, the chances of the Fed cutting rates kind of declines unless there's other data that says that they should. I happen to think they still will cut rates, but not on. If they cut rates today, the markets will go bonkers because they're not expecting it. So if they do nothing, that's as expected. But if the language starts to shift towards a possible June cut, then it will move, and that'll be, even though rates haven't changed, it's just that then they're now looking for this move to come in June. So they'll be picking through any statements that are made. But as far as the markets go, we got so looking at the main equity markets, always start with the US stock market. You say the biggest, most important market in the world, and that trend is still up. We got a retest of the prior high on this pullback, and yeah, it all looks so easy, doesn't it? Oh, there's a support from this resistance, you just buy. Yeah, of course it doesn't work like that, does it? Because the market's panicking, and it's really hard to do that, and that's where contrary opinion theory comes in a little bit. But I'm not saying that that's what I did or what other, but people ask me about what they should do there, and I said, look, it doesn't look like this is the end of the move. So this should be a buying opportunity. Now it's rallied back up, but it hasn't got back to where it started, and that was around 41,800. So I'd expect some resistance up there. The market just gets a little bit like giddy as it gets to this high, and a bit of selling comes in. So I want to see it consolidate, probably come down, go sideways for a bit. But I do think this trend will still continue higher this year, after a consolidation, just because this trend is basically still higher. And also, there's a lot of doubters out there that the trend will go higher. So that's usually a good sign that the market's going to go up. Quick look at the NASDAQ, same deal, big rebound back into or close to where we were before. S&P 500's the same. This is still a big upward trend. Russell 2000, which is smaller cap stocks, they got hurt. They're still recovering. They're still a bit wounded here, but made a higher low, and the trend is still up. So I see no reason why, to change the view there. We could look at gold, which is still, in this upward trend. It's hitting a bit of volatility. I think a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about this maybe being a short-term top, and it's pausing here, which is to be expected. There's a bit of a spike. I think this will go sideways for a bit and then perhaps correct. But I wouldn't bet against the trend just yet because it's still very, very strong, and silver's building up for a breakout, for a catch-up play. So that's all looking good. But the most important market is really the dollar index, the DXY. It's broken 100. It's having a little it's gone lower than 100. It's got to come back and have a last kiss of that level, that 100 level, which it's possibly done here. So it should be ready to go down again. But the trend is still down. That's still good for risk on. And broadly speaking, when we look at equity markets, they're all kind of doing the same thing. They're all synchronized in a correction that markets rebounded from, and they're moving up again. And if interest rates are cut in other places to protect them from tariff moves or whatever it might be, slowing economies, then that's a really good sign for risk on. So overall, I think that nothing's really changed other than we may get a bit of a calm after the storm. But then we'll build up for another big move as we move into sort of H2. So a consolidation in May, possibly a little bit in June. Why not, after all the volatility we've seen? But then things should really start to pick up again as we move into the second half of the year. If we look at the what else is important, looking at the interest rate moves, let's just get those bonds up. We've got the 3-month money, which has had a little spike up when people were a bit worried about what was going on with the bond markets. And that is because when money starts to flow out of a country very fast, they have to raise interest rates in order to protect that country, in order to attract that money back, which can actually exacerbate the problem, and this can get out of control. And I think one day that will be what happens in the US, and could be part of a very a much bigger problem elsewhere. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But for the moment, they seem to have kind of got away with it. Yields in the 2-year are generally easing lower and look like they're going to go down, as well as on the 10-year sideways range, whatever, but they're not accelerating higher, which is what they were doing before. The 30-year, that's building up, I think, perhaps to move over 5%, but for 30-year money, for it to be over 5%, I think that's where it should be, really, especially in a good economy. All that means is if you lend your money to the US Treasury for 30 years, you'd expect to get 5%. I mean, that's a long time to tie your money up for. You make 5% in a day when you're trading some of these altcoins, but there's a huge amount of risk. So you pay your money, you take your choice. So that's why these are priced in this way. But either way, the direction of travel seems to be either yields are easing a bit lower in the short term, or relatively stable, and there's no alarm bells going off, where there was this worry that China was going to use retaliatory action by just selling US bonds and causing an even bigger sell-off. It did feel like that, and it felt like all of this was just making each country, instead of working together want to be far more selfish, which is not a good thing. But I think eventually, I think Trump's a good businessman in the sense that he knows what to do to make things work. And if things aren't working, I think he'll change. So he may just either rein back on the tariffs or have some kind of get out. There's a very interesting expression that's used by Sun Tzu in The Art of War. It says, always build your enemy a golden bridge with which to retreat. And I think that's good business practice, you know. So if people want to negotiate here, they've got to do it in a way that makes everybody save face, you know, without it looking bad. But in the end, everyone will get what they want. But the markets being the most sensitive, the equity markets being the most sensitive of all indicators, have rebounded fast. So that's a really important thing, as far as I can see. And although the correlation with Bitcoin is not one-to-one with the stock market, it's definitely been helped by risk on flows, and it's been helped by a weaker dollar, which is again something that we've wanted and looked at for a long time. And we've maintained that this trend has been always up, even though this correction was hard. It was coming back to this prior support point, which was previous resistance, and it was here that people were getting excited, or the first stages of them even getting excited about Trump coming in. So it was a lot of Johnny come lately type trades that came in as Trump had come in. And it wasn't, as I've said before, it wasn't clear that it was definitely going to come down, but it was when there was a lot of heat on Bitcoin and a lot of heat on the sector, even in the main press, that was a bit of a warning sign that we had to be careful. But it still didn't suggest that we would have such a sharp decline. It was clearly triggered by, you know, the other asset markets getting hit and people liquidating positions. But the power of the rebound, again, is consistent with this longer term bull market. Remember, people were just saying that's it over here again, as well as they were saying that's it over here, when we're in this, you know, this period. So the bull market continues on.
Yes, you know, that Trump trade was interesting after his election victory, how Bitcoin went crazy and the ISO coins, so XRP, XLM, and several other ones, absolutely went crazy. XRP doing a 5x, which was incredible to watch, especially after XRP had been held down for so long because the US SEC going after them so strongly. I do think XRP has a very broad future and some other things. I think Bitcoin has a very bright future. What's funny is in these pullbacks that have a lot of people fretting, some of the bigger institutions and countries have been picking up Bitcoin, and some of them even holding some other cryptos. I do think the right things are setting up for a massive boom again, like we saw in 2021 and 2017. Perhaps really this time it's even bigger. We've not seen big countries adopting crypto prior to this. And I think in this wave, we're going to see some of that. And countries have much bigger amounts of funds, countries and institutions, than just individual buyers. So let's take a look at, we took a look at Bitcoin. Why don't we take a look at ETH? Then we'll get into some of the picks to look at for this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And Chris makes a good point. I do need to tidy up my chart a little bit. I do tend to put the lines on and then just sort of leave them because sometimes they come into play, but I should really tidy it up. So that's that's a good point. All I'm looking at when I'm looking at the chart, I know it looks all crazy. It might have been that I was looking for a percentage retracement and I've left that on there, but I'm looking at the simple breakout point. So that resistance line, how it was tapping it, and then when it went through, and then the top, and then the support here and support here against support here, and the overall trend being up and the main trend line. So it looks really complicated, but it's actually not. It's not really. I'm just looking at the broader trends and where the support and resistance is. But yeah, I totally get it. My chart does look a bit of a mess, so I'll clean up some of those levels. So ETH, it's been an interesting one, isn't it? And by interesting, I mean it's been much weaker than it should have been. It's broken this trend line here. It was broke support. It was very unusual. I thought that was odd, because in this area here, I was fairly convinced that this would just hold out, and as Bitcoin was going up, people would look at it and go, what a undervalued bargain, and it would start to rally. But it never gave us enough to say, yeah, this is it. It was always like, well, come on, it's got to move now. A bit like silver has done the same with gold. You know, gold's just gone crazy, and silver, everyone's kind of waiting for it to break out, because it should the undervalued, the kind of spread between the two is fairly consistent, and it's just been widening and widening. And now it doesn't guarantee that ETH should go up. It's just that in a bull market, those two things play together. So an indication that the next phase is coming would be that ETH moves higher. Now, it's made quite a nice low, and it made this low in a way that's what I would describe as a spike. So it hit a low, come back, and then it's gone sideways, and now it's breaking up. And I like this little pattern because it's a consolidation and a compression of price action at the top end of a range, which normally follows another breakup. So I think things could be turning for ETH, and I do understand that there's going to be some skepticism because it's underperformed so much, and there is a lot of work to do here. Big resistance up at this 2116 area, this whole area here where all this resistance was before, and where we got the breakdown from. That's all, a big barrier. So until we're cleared of that, and also cleared of this downward trend line, we've got to be cautious. But if it was short-term and speculative, for me, I could be tempted to buy here, because I think we may have seen the worst, and the risk reward is, if it starts to come down, probably 1500 below there, that would be my stop. So it might finally be time for this to turn around. And but that there's some caveats there. There's a lot. Even if it does turn around, it might not be a straight line. It might underperform Bitcoin as well. And it may not be a straight line up. It might just go sideways as Bitcoin goes down, and on the spreads it's going up, but actually price wise it's not moving much. So I'll get much more excited about it when it breaks through this area here, the 2000 to 2116 point, this like little zone here. When it's playing up here, then I think that would be really interesting. But if this is the low, it's still printing higher lows, which is important, and this whole area will still be seen as a consolidation, funnily enough. And if that's the case, we'll be talking about some big numbers on the upside. But for the moment, one step at a time. Let's just see how it performs. So for me, short-term speculative buy, and let's see how we play.
All right, I like that. Yeah, I think ETH is undervalued. And one of the indicators to me is just the amount of FUD against ETH. Like, it's had its day. It's not going to survive versus all these other layer ones that are cheaper, faster. And I heard that in 2020 and early 2021. And then ETH had a blow off top, and altcoins then ran with it. And so I think that's setting up. Now, a lot of the momentum I do think in the near future goes into Bitcoin, and then it flows into the altcoins, including ETH. I think ETH has enough traction that institutions will be buying and scooping up ETH too in the coming run. And so I think ETH is here to stay for the short term at a minimum. Whether it survives long term, I don't know. There are layer ones that are so much faster. But ETH has been around long enough to have a lot of credibility, and bigger players want something that has that kind of credibility. So I think ETH's just been punished, as often happens, as it's out of the narrative. And a lot of people have focused on Solana, and months ago drove Solana to really, really big highs. and ETH was underpriced. I don't like chasing Solana when it's in narrative. I like, if I were buying these really high blue chips, ETH would be a buy for me at this. Am I actually buying it? No, I'm in much riskier projects that tend to go up when ETH goes up. They just go up a lot farther and a lot faster. So blue chips or high market cap altcoins isn't really my play. But if it was, ETH is a buy at this point, in my opinion. Let's take a look at another blue chip, one that I actually quite like, called SUI.
Yeah. So SUI was one that we looked at, wasn't it, a few weeks back? And I think the call there was that it looked like it was breaking out, and it has broken high. It's done pretty well. It's now having a little pullback. I can't remember whether I said it was a buy or whether it was a wait, but it was this acceleration in price was definitely of interest. And this pullback is fine. You know, it's happening near a previous resistance that it's to be expected after such a strong move. And in some ways, I like that. I prefer it that it doesn't just keep going in a straight line, because it means that there is some short-term buying, some selling that comes in, and longer term players aren't shaken out by it, and it's not like a firework that just goes up and then that's it. You know, it has a more structured move to the upside, even though, of course, yeah, who wouldn't want everything to go up in a straight line and stay up there? But that's just unrealistic and unlikely to happen at this stage anyway. But yeah, for now, it's still good. I've always kind of liked SUI. I probably got too excited about it up here when it was trending ahead of everything else, and we got this big correction. So we were waiting for it to show signs that it finally ended this bear phase, and I think this is fairly conclusive, or has been. So yeah, for me, long term, I think it's a buy. And as long as it holds over $2.80, which is this breakout point, then I'm fairly kind of not. I mean, you're never relaxed about position, but that's where I would start to question what's going on if it closes below that. But even then, we now have an upward trend line that hits from this low to this previous low here. So we've got a trend rate that is gradual and to the upside. So, you know, maybe eventually it wants to come and test that. It's going off at quite a sharp angle here, which may not be sustainable in the short term, but it's still above that. So that's why this consolidation is okay. You know, if it comes back to here, back to $3, retests it, and then has another move up, I think that would work out pretty well. But it's nice to see that there is some movement in some of the altcoins, and this is a good one. So yeah, more of this in lots of other markets is what we want to see.
Yeah, I like SUI a lot. This is a look at SUI on CoinMarketCap. Now, it's solidly in the blue chip category as well, with an $11 billion market cap. Looks like the fully diluted value is $33 billion, so only 1/3 of the tokens are in supply. SUI was basically a lot of the Facebook research into making a blockchain. They were going to do their own blockchain, and that got stopped. Well, all that research got rolled into SUI and handed over to SUI. And so there's, I don't know, billions of dollars of research into building this layer 1 blockchain. And it's getting traction and adoption, which is what you want to see. And so transaction costs are low, speeds are good. Yeah, I like SUI. I liked SUI a lot under $1. And now it's 330, but I think it's still got a ways to go for blue chips. Now, the reason I don't buy blue chips at this stage is I'm still in the grow my portfolio by as much as I can stage. Now, for those that already have billions of dollars in net worth, blue chips might be a much more attractive option. Or if you're just trying to slowly grow your wealth and maintain it, blue chips often feel a lot safer, and I would like SUI. Like if I were in that stage and I had a couple $1 billion of my own that I was managing, and, you know, I'd probably park a couple hundred, like 50 to 100 million into something like SUI. And it's okay if it only does a 5x or an 8x during the 4-year period, or during this upswing that seems to happen every 4 years. As it stands, I'm just in plays that I hope do a 30x or a 50x or a 100x or a 200x. So I'm not in SUI, even though I quite like it. And it would still be a buy at this price for me. Let's take a look at AXL. This came from one of our viewer suggestions. He put in the comments of our last video that we did 2 weeks ago. And so let's take a look at AXL.
AXL, right. So, is that AXLR? Is that how you say it? Yeah. Okay. Let's just check it's up to date price. Interesting. Now, don't know anything about this, but it's got some decent history. We're going back to 23. Clear bull run, clear double top. That's like absolute classic. I think that's never been surpassed. It was not been surpassed from this period here. So bear market from 24, and it's just trying to recover it. So we got this high here, again, lower high, not good. Lower high, lower low again. So the trend has been down. So that means it's been down for a long time. So we have to be a bit more cautious about jumping in on this, balanced against missing a good opportunity to jump in and get with what could be a really nice recovery. So at the moment, we've got to play it slightly more cautiously, or I've got to play it. I'm talking from my point of view. I'm never talking from anyone else's. This is not advice. This is just what I think of the chart, right? And obviously things change too. But this, if we zoom into what's going on now, this downward trend here is coming to an end. It feels like it's coming to an end because we got this these higher lows, break of support. This is a classic sell signal, a really good one, and it went down a bit and then it's come back up again. So I would have, classic trade would have been to short it here at 33 cents. Where am I now? I'm offside. You got to think of both sides of what's happening. So when the selling pressure starts to fade and the bulls start to take over, you see this shift in trend. And we've also got an upward trend from the 7th of April. So if we work from this, it's a very kind of tentative buy. So nothing more than that, really. Nothing. I wouldn't be happy with this if I was to say, what I do is I look at this and I say, right, so what if I bought it here and I was, say on a motorbike holiday, not that I ride a motorbike, but I was on a motorbike holiday in, going across America without any internet, would I be happy with this? What would happen? What would I be thinking? And I wouldn't be completely convinced that it would be going up. I'd be thinking, not sure about that position intuitively, because it hasn't done enough to show that it's based out, and there is still a lot of work for it to do. But from a short-term perspective, if I was looking week to week, I might be tempted to buy it because it's forming this low, and there's enough for me to structure a trade, which would be to buy it with a stop below this trend line. And the trend line is relatively close, so my risk is not zero, but it's relatively small. So say a close below 29.57, something like that. So I know where I'm wrong. I've got 6 cents approximately of risk, which percentage terms in this is a lot, right? Which is why it will show up on radars as it has a rally. But when you look at the actual chart, you see what work it has to do in order to turn the trend around. So in summary, I think it is trying to break out of a very severe bear market, and it looks like it's doing it, but it just needs a bit more evidence from a long-term trade. Even if this kind of recovers in the short term, the big levels are at 42 cents, or basically 43. You can see where it stopped before. Those points need to be broken, and this pattern of lower highs needs to be broken as well. So if it can get through here, then it would start to look really interesting. And the good thing about it is once it starts going up, if it starts to go up, there could be quite a lot of upside there because it will be recovering a fairly decent trend. Now, from a charting perspective, some people use that as an excuse to buy it because it's inverted commas cheap. And I don't do that. I want the chart to show strength before we do that. So there has to be a valid technical reason for me to get in. And there's enough of a reason to justify this is producing higher lows, albeit tentative. But this happened here, and then it all fell apart. So I've got to be cautious. So nothing more for me than a small position, even though I'd say short term it looks interesting, and I can see why you'd want to have a look at it. So it's a good one. Definitely should come back to it and see how it's getting on in a few weeks.
Yeah, I think this is a fantastic suggestion. So AXLR, 35 cents. Looking at the numbers, so the fully diluted value, if all the tokens were in circulation, would be 432 million. Their current market cap is 346 million, which means a large percentage of their tokens are in circulation already. I like to see that. I like that it's pulled back from these interesting March highs when it went all the way to $2.20. It's currently way down from that. I like tokens that launched in the last couple of years and their token price have been punished by the bear market, which it has. There's some other things I found about AXLR that I like. Number one, the token vesting schedule is slowing down. You see it was very accelerated during here where tons of tokens were coming in circulation. Now it's really slowing down. I like that. I like this about AXLR. AXLR claims to deliver secure cross-chain communications for Web3. The project provides a decentralized network and tools to help builders of decentralized applications with seamless cross-chain communication through its protocol suite, tools, and APIs. AXLR features three core components: a decentralized network, a software development kit of protocols and APIs, and a set of gateway smart contracts for cross-chain compatibility. So the AXL is a native token of the AXLR network. The protocol also supports the cross-chain transfers of several native tokens via their wrapped ERC20 version, including Avalanche, Ethereum, Phantom, Glimmer, and Matic. Meanwhile, AXLR has raised capital from top-tier investors, including Binance and Coinbase Ventures. That's a really big deal. Binance and Coinbase Ventures are really careful on what they invest in. And so that's a statement of confidence when they've received investments from them. Secondly, if you look and you click on this, who were the founders of AXLR? The blockchain platform was launched in 2020 by Georgios, I don't know how to say that, Vlachos, and Sergey Gerbernov. I don't know how to say that either. Both part of the founding team at Algorand. Okay. I'd like to see that kind of thing because at the end of the day, great idea is important, but an amazing team is as important or more important than the idea. And here it is at a market cap that is, 350 million. So this has potential to be a blue chip, and it's below blue chip prices right now. So this is a fantastic suggestion. Now it seems like it's a competitor to Wanchain, which I like, and Wanchain's market cap is much, much, much cheaper. But I do like to diversify across different projects in the same chain. And this one is, they've got some big backers and they have some good founding team members that have helped create Algorand, which is much, much higher in the blue chip category. I'd say that it's a big deal. Amazing suggestion for me. 100%. It's a buy. I like where the price is at. It's pulled back. I like, it's almost at the cheapest it's been this whole bear market. And that doesn't mean it can't get cheaper, but I'm a value investor. I like to buy cheap, and sometimes it then goes cheaper on me. Cool. Then I buy more, and then I just wait till every 4 years has that amazing push where crypto goes crazy, and that's what I sell into. So amazing suggestion by one of our viewers. Definitely gets a buy for me. Let's take a look at one we've covered a lot, and I'm a big fan of, DEVVE.
Yeah, I jumped the gun there a little bit, and I jumped to a pick. So let's get back and have a look at DEVVE, which is definitely important. Now, I think last time we looked at this, it was consolidating around support, and I was looking at this line and saying I wouldn't like it if it went through this point, and it seems to be just leaning on it still. A little bit disappointing. I think I said it was a wait because it's still in this area, even though I like the long term. And I think I'm going to have to stick with that it's still a wait. Perhaps even looking to get a bit cheaper towards this 49 cents before it goes back up again. This downward trend line has been fairly consistent. That needs to here in this area here between these two lines, it's neutral. It's just leaning on the bottom line a bit too much. So, I've seen it happen where it goes through like this and then just flips back up again, and nothing to see here, and the line gets redrawn. But at some point you have to make a decision with it. And from a neutral position, short term, I've got to work out whether I want to step in and buy it. And at this point, I'm thinking, well, I could wait until it breaks this upper line anyway. So why don't I just do that? And if it's going to be bullish, it'll do that. So for the moment, short term, neutral. So it's a wait. But I do like the longer term structure. So I'm just trying to be a bit more picky about where the buy comes in for me. And also why is it getting so heavy here when it was leading at one point? Is there something in there, maybe a bit of oversupply that needs to shake out a bit more? I thought this was a shakeout because it did that and then started to rally, so it looked really good, but we haven't made much headway. And look, you could argue that both ways and say there's been a lot of volatility, and it's managed to kind of hold its range. So that's why it's a tricky one. But structurally, longer term, I think it's still good, and I'm just waiting for it to give a better short-term signal that it wants to break higher. I'm sure we're going to look at it either next week or in a couple of weeks' time. So we'll be back and see what's going on. But for me, just at this short-term point, I think it's going to be a wait.
Yeah, we check in on this one frequently. Cool. Most of been waiting for some DEVVE analysis. Almost ready to ask. Took the day off. Glad to see the podcast live today. Good to have you here, Mo. All right. So DEVVE, if you've been following my channel, I've been covering this one for 4 years. And what's funny is in the crypto space, this one built in stealth mode for so long. Most of the crypto space hasn't been aware of this one, and still not aware of this, even though it's got the fastest transactions speed in all of crypto. It is a competitor to like Solana, but in a different way. So Solana, Cardano, even Ethereum, they're what's called permissionless blockchains, which means anyone can write to it. And permissionless blockchains have some strengths, and then permissioned blockchains have some strengths. So permissioned blockchains are much more like what enterprises are going to use. One of the downsides of, say, using decentralized finance is if somebody, say you transact with somebody and send them some money, they then see your wallet address and they can see every transaction you've made with that wallet. So there's no privacy. A permission blockchain is important for being able to give you privacy so that your transactions can actually be private. But also they have court-ordered transparency, which means should they receive a subpoena from a government to see one of the government citizens' transactions, then they can comply with that and they can turn over those transactions. So this one is is likely to get broad adoption, in my opinion, by not just enterprises, but governments, because it's regulatory friendly in a lot of ways that a lot of blockchains aren't, where you can have that privacy, but then you can have also court order transparency, which are what governments are going to want to see. Now, still, most of the crypto space is completely unaware of DEVVE, even though it's got the fastest transaction per second speeds. It's got really extremely low transaction costs. It's got some big things bubbling up for it. And yet we're still at this point that most in the crypto space are totally unaware of it. And I love this kind of bet. I bet heavy on, well, at the time for me, it was heavy on Axie Infinity. And for a long time, Axie Infinity was not known by the crypto space. Anytime I tried to talk to people about it, they didn't even know what I was talking about. And Axie Infinity became one of the biggest gainers of 2021's bull market. Another one that I invested in, a Comey, became one of the biggest gainers of the.
Oh, someone's been cut out. Looks like the show's on me. So I think I better keep it going until Rain can get back in. I think he must have had
we are back. Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay.
Decided to.
Did your internet die?
Yeah. It was a quick blip, so that was interesting. So here we are back talking about DEVVE. Yeah, DEVVE is one of my favorites. I like this kind of price action where it's really getting cheap and it's hitting some lows again at 58 cents. And you see these rounded bottoms here. Now, it could break below this. I'd say maybe it does, but I don't think it's going to go much below this. Now, back here, I was talking about it a ton. And I was like, wow, these prices below 25 cents is just incredible. And it got all the way down to 14 cents. I know a lot of my audience made some buys under 20 cents, between 20 cents and 14 cents. And they were really happy because even though we weren't in the full-on bull market, it went up to $1.80. And then it's pulled back down for another dip for people to buy at lows. Now, their market cap is so low. Current price is the $53 million market cap for a layer 1 blockchain that has the fastest transaction speeds in blockchain. Secondly, like one of the big deals is they've been teasing this partnership that they signed last December with one of the largest stock exchanges in the world. And that I'm curious to see what that partnership looks like specifically. Is that stock exchange going to build on DevvExchange's technology, which allows them to be able to trade not just like stocks, but you can tokenize the stocks and make it tradable. You could trade cryptos. You can trade all kinds of assets on something like what the DevvExchange can do. And you can transact at crazy speeds that centralized databases can't match. And one of their big claims to fame with the DevvExchange is that it has instant finality on the exchange. And so that saves exchanges having to keep reserves for a float. For example, say you buy some Tesla stock on whatever Robinhood or whatever exchange you use to trade stocks, and you buy 100 shares at the current price. Well, those aren't actually sent to you for a day or two, even though it shows up in your balance that they're there. That is usually not finalized for a day or two. And sometimes the price changes in that meantime, and they have to keep afloat to make up for the price change that may have happened. So say you bought something at $1.40 and say it's now $1.43, they have to use that float to still transact it to you at $1.40. So instant finality means that the exchanges wouldn't have to keep all this money in reserves just for a float. I like this one. It's one of my largest holdings in crypto. I bet very big on DevvExchange. If you haven't signed up for DevvExchange, I do have a link to it below. What is really cool about the DevvExchange is sign up using my link. And as you sign up, you can refer other people to it. and they will have some of the highest paid referral fees for people using it. So they have some plans to really help this go viral. Now, say later on when they really launch the DevvExchange and they partnered with one of the largest stock exchanges in the world, I think the chance that it goes viral get way, way, way bigger. Secondly, the fact that they're paying percentage of their exchange fees to those who referred people is going to help push that virality on steroids. So a very smart setup to take their exchange to one of the most popular exchanges in the world. And yet right now it's very like most people don't even know what it is. Another thing that I like about DEVVE on top of it is the use cases that they've created for their token. Extremely good use cases. One of the big things is people transact on the DevvExchange. Well, they actually are going to settle it to the DEVVE token and then to whatever other token. So say somebody has Bitcoin and they want to buy Cardano. Well, what they'll do is they'll settle the Bitcoin to DEVVE token and DEVVE to Cardano token. And so those that are providing liquidity in the DEVVE token will also make a small percentage of fees. And so by holding DEVVE token and locking it up to be used as liquidity, you can make gains on your token. And so passive income on your DEVVE token will be really, really good, giving it a solid use case. I just think all the right things are setting up for this to possibly be one of the biggest gainers in the coming bull run. All right. Kumo says, I watched the interview for their PR guy. He was so confident. Everyone thinks the partner is NASDAQ. Soon, LOL. Always soon. I know. Yeah, they've been saying soon since December. What they've given us as far as why they haven't announced the partner yet. There's 2 jurisdictions that they're waiting on some regulatory clarity from. And the jurisdictions are just taking time, but it seems like everything's going well in those jurisdictions. And when those jurisdictions give the greater regulatory clarity, then they'll announce that partnership. But the partnership is already in play. The deal's already been signed. It's just the official announcement as to who it is hasn't been done yet. Yeah, I hope DEVVE isn't a rug pull. Their technology seems too good to be true. I know, right? This is a story that can go absolutely viral, and you hope that it does. I thought way back in 2019 that one of the biggest stories was this idea of ownership of game items on the blockchain, including land, and there was a game behind it, Axie Infinity. I thought that was a big deal. Turned out I was right, and it was one of the biggest gainers of 2021. I think going for this one, there's a couple that I really, really like that I think have really strong narratives. But DEVVE, I'm looking at this and saying, I don't see why this doesn't have a market cap that goes to 10 billion or maybe even 100 billion from here. And those kind of numbers are crazy. So we'll see what it actually does. But I don't see why this one doesn't have massive traction. Most of the crypto space completely unaware of it right now, but it has a story that I think is solid enough that most of the crypto space would be interested in it. I like this analogy, right? I fished for catfish in the Mississippi River when I was a kid. I feel like that now, just waiting for the pole to start getting hit, then bending over with a 25-pounder. It's the dog days of crypto. Patience. It is
lovely image, isn't it?
It's a lot like that, and it's just a patience game. And what's funny is, so some of the people, like one guy I met, funny story. He did some dev work for a Chinese company back in like 2012. And they're like, oh, we can't pay you in like funds and stuff. So we're going to pay you in this new online currency called Bitcoin. And so we did a whole bunch of work for them for 6 months, and they paid him in Bitcoin. And the only reason that he became completely rich off this is because he forgot about the Bitcoin. he had like the keys and stuff on a laptop that he stored in his parents' home, and he just had it there. And it wasn't until 2017 when he was reading the stories about Bitcoin going absolutely nuts that he was like off at college or something, and he called his parents like, "Hey, is my room untouched?" And they're like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Don't touch anything. I'll be home in 7 hours." And they're like, "It's a 7-hour drive." And he said, "Oh, I'm aware." So he drove straight home, and his laptop was still there. And essentially what he did was buy and hold. He stopped getting thrown around by like all the day-to-day worries, and he just let it play out. He didn't mean to. He at the time thought, well, whatever, I'm getting some experience for doing this project, and this Bitcoin probably won't ever be worth anything. And his position ended up being worth tens of millions of dollars. But it's only because he wasn't trading it. Had he tried to cash it in back then, if he had been thinking about it and following the day-to-days, he might have gotten worried and sold it back in like 2014 or something. But instead, he just kind of put it to the side and forgot about it. And in crypto, like a lot of times my private community, they ask me, what do I think? What do I do? And it's like, right now it's just patience time. You're just waiting. A lot of my audience is dollar cost average during the bear market. Their additional funds that they can invest are exhausted. And now it's just a waiting game to see which of your narratives you were right on and letting them play out. So DEVVE, I'm excited watching this play out. I'm excited that it's come down for another dip for those that can pick up more. I think this really has a big upside. It's my bet. That's why this one of my largest holdings in crypto. And it's a lot like fishing for catfish. You're just waiting. And that waiting blows out a lot of people. They just can't do the patience part. I used to be so excited when I was newer to crypto. I was like, yeah, crypto. Now I start asking questions. People are like, should I get into crypto? I'm like, I don't know. Should you? 90% of people fail at this. Let me ask you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how patient are you? So if they're like, I'm highly, highly patient, I'm like, maybe it's for you. Because it does take massive patience. All right, let's jump into, it was Justin asking us to look at VRA.
Yeah. So yeah, VRA, I think, was it a few weeks ago we looked at this and we were talking about this breakout, and it was a strong breakout. Look, if I didn't say that, I should have said that. I can't remember what I said, but that is technically a really clear sign. So I should have been saying a breakout. I might have to go back and have a look. Not that I ever would, but anyway, apologies if I didn't say that. But this was a very interesting basing pattern that we got here, and it broke very cleanly, which is nice. And it's nice that we're getting some good, clean technical signals like this. Say there's a few markets that have just gone straight up, which is good. It means that there is some risk on money out there, and I'm hoping that, excuse me, there will be more. So if we look at the bigger picture structure, there is still clearly a bit more work to do. We've got these lower highs that have come in, this one, this one, this one. And if we draw a line across here, it still hasn't broken that. But I think it's really important that it's back over this low at 0.2 cents. And this major support that was broken here, and it's back through that in style. Now, whether we have a consolidation here or not I think it's warranted, but the kind of low risk trade has gone, and now it's a question of whether we're going to get an extension of the trend. Resistance points from where we are now would be at this 41 area, and there's a lot of resistance there because it chewed that for a while before it went down, and it's got very close to it. So seeing a little bit of selling coming in ahead of it. But the main point is, what will it do big picture? And I think this looks more impulsive. I mean, it's done things like this before here and then gone up a bit more and then consolidated again. So there's a chance that that's what it's going to do again. But, bigger picture, we are approaching this phase when altcoins should have a run. And we want to look for the ones that are leading the way, and this looks to be one of them. So I'm gonna say because of the outperformance, this is a buy, but it's a buy for me on the expectation that it will have a pullback, and it probably come back to test this 2168 area before it then goes back up again. So I'm fully expecting some swings, and if we get a straight line move, then all the better. Um, but it's still tentative as well until we take out this lower trend line here. Once it's done that, then we can start talking about some much bigger numbers. But for the moment, it's doing really well. I like the fact that it's outperforming, so that's why it stays on the buy list.
Awesome. VRA is an interesting one. This is one that made me some money in the 2021 run. Now, I don't hold it presently. And it has an interesting narrative. So it's proof of viewership. And one of the good things about blockchain is it does have some additional security features so that you can see it. And one of the concerns for people that are paying ad revenue to advertise is it actually getting viewed, or is it just people have a bunch of browsers open and have bots mimicking people behavior just to get a lot of ad revenue or do something else on the internet? So they're concerned about like actual viewership. So is this a narrative that I love for this coming bull run? It's not a narrative that I love for it. I just, there's other narratives that I feel like have a more tangible thing that I follow closer. But some interesting things about VRA is it's done a good job building a community. Like it's stuck around during not just the last bear market, but this bear market. The price action is also interesting with it having this really big spike. So I do think this does well into the coming bull run. Do I think it outperforms some of the narratives I find more interesting? No, or I would be holding it. Do I think it'll perform well? Yes, I think versus stocks and everything else, VRA is going to do quite well. What I'd be looking, if I were getting serious about holding VRA, is I would want to be seeing what kind of traction they're actually having with advertising companies. Is their narrative really getting traction where they're actually getting deals from major advertisers for this idea of proof of viewership? And that will, I guess, show me what the market thinks of their narrative. Either way, I do think we're going into a bull run and that crypto is going to do quite well. And VRA, being a $30 million market cap, has big potential upside. So cool suggestion. I don't hold this anymore. I did cover it back in 2021 and it did make me some money. I don't hold it any longer, but that doesn't mean I don't like it. It just means it's not one of my favorites. All right. Cool. Well, that's our suggestions for the week.
Brilliant.
Paul, we missed you last week. Glad to have you back. So glad to have you back. And we're so thankful that Manu from DEVVE lends you to us. That is awesome.
Oh, he's gone again.
That is awesome that he shares you with us, right? And just your insights with 30 years experience in looking at price action.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. It's nice to be part of a community, and I think you've got some really, good people that are your viewers. They're smart. They know more about crypto than I do. I just look at the markets, and I think you can see that there's a lot of intelligent questions and stuff that they know about in the background. So it's always a pleasure. It's good to be back. Thank you, and look forward to next week.
Yeah, thanks so much, Paul, for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, the crypto market is still not taking off, and it can be difficult being patient for it, but it is still coming. And the right foundational things are still setting up. I do think the US starts adding to their Bitcoin position. I think that'll put massive pressure on other countries to add Bitcoin into their treasuries. And it will start this massive run towards crypto, and we will have this massive wave. I do think the chances keep getting stronger that we do have a super cycle. So though this delay can be frustrating, I think it's going to be more than worth it. Now, is this going to be our last run? I hope it isn't. There is a chance this is our last major 4-year cycle, because at some point there's not the wave of adoption still in front of you. For example, back in 2000, the year 2000, some people had cell phones, but most of the world didn't. And so you can make a lot of money in cell phone companies and things related to cell phones as cell phones went worldwide. Well, now most everyone across the world has cell phones. So maybe they're upgrading their cell phones, but there's not the kind of growth money that there once was in cell phones because there was an adoption curve happening. And crypto is going through an adoption curve that a small percentage of the world has crypto and is recognizing crypto. And I think most of the world in the future has crypto and recognizes crypto and is going through that adoption curve. And at some point, much of the world already has crypto, and there's not all these new people to wake up to it. They might increase over time how much crypto they have, but we're going through that adoption curve, which creates these abnormally large gains. So how is this bull run going to play out? Well, I think it's going to play out really strong. And if it does play out really, really strong, what does go way up does go way down. It's just the nature of like swinging a pendulum really far one way. It then swings back the other way. So that hopefully we have another crypto winter, because a crypto winter, I know many of you, this will be your first bull run that you're prepared for. And maybe if this is a super cycle, maybe it makes you life-changing gains in one run. But what I've seen is true life-changing gains really come to you over 2 bull runs that you're prepared for. The first one really putting you in a different category, but it's not necessarily retire well for the rest of your life money, unless you get like you just do extremely, extremely well. But if you just have normal, amazing returns, it sets you up well enough that if you deploy that capital again in the following bear market and it takes another run up, then it's complete life-changing, lifestyle-changing money for the rest of your life. All right. If you haven't taken my Zero to Crypto Hero course, got a brief show of what that is about, a brief commercial. I strongly suggest it. This really just encapsulates the lessons that I've learned 8 years in crypto, especially for those that have a high value on their time and they're trying to make the most happen out of this bull run. This is a course you need to take a look at. You are right. Crypto is the most exciting technology since the invention of the internet. Investing in crypto can make you massive gains, but were you aware that most people in crypto have mediocre to bad results? There are 5 things to avoid doing wrong and 3 things to make sure you are doing right, or crypto is not going to go for you like you want it to go. I've been in the crypto space for 7 years, and I've seen what most do that do it wrong. And I've also seen what most do that are massively successful in crypto and what they are doing differently. Now, I was able to retire in 2021 after just 4 years because of crypto. And I want to show you how you can make that happen for you too. Now, take my Zero to Crypto Hero course if you want to be part of the 5% of people that make life-changing wealth from crypto. All right, just a little bit of fun there. A lot of the big social flexes will come after this time because some people need to see it. Like, do I think Lamborghinis and nice cars are excessive? Kind of. Like, Lamborghinis aren't as much my thing. I do like really amazing trucks. And so that'll be something I get for myself. Crazy cars, just to help people wake up to this message and how important like crypto can be when you're utilizing it right. So if you haven't taken that course, there's a link to that below. There's a discount code associated with the link. If you check out the discount code and use that, you'll get a discounted rate on it. Look, I'm excited for what's coming. It's going to be really huge. Those of you that are well prepared for it, it's going to change your finances. I'm excited to see all the stories that come out of our audience. Right now, this message only attracts 5% of the crypto space. And that's okay. It's the 5% that are willing to do things differently than everyone else. And they're really, you cannot get massive gains in crypto when you are doing what everyone else is doing. And most come into crypto and they want to do what everyone else is doing. And that's why the success rates are so bad, where 89% do poorly or straight up lose money in crypto. 89%. So there's 6% that do pretty good, and there's 5% overall that do incredible. What are those 5% doing? They're definitely doing the opposite of what that 89% are doing. And so that's a lot of you, actually, that 5%. I watch your behaviors. I watch the kind of decisions you make. The fact that you stuck through this bear market, that alone is different. Most have washed out. Then your dollar cost averaging on fundamentally better looking projects that have really good potential for upside. This is going to be life changing for so many of you. Looking forward to that. We'll see y'all soon.
Into the space, chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, you're bad before you're good. Was taught to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always made the time in mind. I take the one out cause I'm patient like that. And I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't leave with my heart. The principles are simple, to leaving a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, got parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, studying to know that nothing comes easy but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this road, cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. I'm strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time, the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go of the hate, let the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough, and that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.